It started as a normal Tuesday. The kids were at school, and I was cleaning up the kitchen when my phone buzzed. A simple text from my husband, Daniel. "We need to talk." I frowned. That wasn't like him. He was the kind of man who would rather suffer in silence than burden me with his emotions. When he walked through the door that evening, his face was pale, his hands shaking as he gripped a crumpled envelope. I noticed his red-rimmed eyes, the kind that told me he'd been crying. I had never seen Daniel cry, not even when his father passed. "What's wrong?" I asked, heart hammering. He threw the envelope onto the dining table. "Open it," he whispered. My hands trembled as I pulled out the papers inside. DNA test results. I read the words, my eyes scanning over the brutal truth. Neither of our sons, Liam, 12, and Ethan, 9, were biologically his. My breath caught in my throat. My vision blurred. The walls closed in around me.
Dan.
He shook his head.
No, don't.
I need to know. Were you ever going to tell me? Tears spilled down my face. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. A bitter laugh escaped him. How does a mother not know who the father of her kids is? My mind reeled, scrambling for explanations. I had never cheated on him, at least I didn't think I had. But then my stomach twisted. There was one possibility. 12 years ago, a drunken night at my bachelorette party. The night before our wedding. A night I had buried so deep I convinced myself it never happened. I covered my mouth with my hand, nausea creeping up my throat. Oh my God. Daniel's jaw tightened. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, his hands clenched into fists. He turned and walked toward the front door.
Wait.
Where are you going? I pleaded, reaching for him. He pulled away. I need to think. Daniel, please. We can fix this. But he didn't respond. He stepped out, shutting the door behind him. I ran to the window, just in time to see him sitting in his car. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His shoulders shook violently. He was crying. I waited. 5 minutes.
10.
Then, without looking back, he turned the key in the ignition and drove away. And he never came back. Days passed. Then weeks. There were no calls, no messages. His phone went straight to voicemail every time I tried. At first, I thought he just needed space, but as time dragged on, reality began to sink in. Daniel was gone. I checked his bank accounts, untouched. His work, he never showed up. His car? Missing. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. Panic set in. I called the police, but they weren't much help. He's an adult, the officer on the phone said with a sigh. There's no sign of foul play. If he doesn't want to be found, there's nothing we can do. The weight of their words crushed me. I had lost him. The boys kept asking for their father. Where's Daddy? Liam would ask, his voice small and uncertain. Ethan, too young to understand, simply cried when his bedtime stories were no longer read in Daniel's voice. What was I supposed to tell them? The truth? That I had destroyed the only father they ever knew? Daniel's mother didn't hold back her fury. You took everything from him, she spat when I showed up at her doorstep. The disgust in her eyes cut deeper than I expected. 12 years, Emily. 12 years he gave you, and you repaid him like this? Tears burned my eyes. I didn't know, she scoffed. That's what all liars say. I had never felt so alone. Guilt clung to me like a second skin. I stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Every night, I lay awake, staring at the empty space beside me. It had been Daniel's side of the bed, but now it was nothing but cold sheets and bitter memories. One evening, as I mindlessly sorted through the pile of mail on the kitchen counter, my hand stilled over an envelope with no return address. Something about it made my chest tighten. With trembling fingers, I tore it open and pulled out a single sheet of paper. I thought you were my forever. You were my home. But I was living in a lie, ***. I don't know who I am without you, and I don't want to find out. Don't look for me. Just tell the boys I loved them. Goodbye, ***. The letter slipped from my fingers. My knees buckled, and I clutched the edge of the counter to keep from collapsing. This wasn't just heartbreak. It was grief. Daniel wasn't just gone. He had erased himself from our lives completely. And it was all my fault. I refused to accept that Daniel was gone for good. The man who had spent 12 years raising our boys, loving them unconditionally, wouldn't just disappear forever. I had to find him. Hiring a private investigator wasn't a decision I made lightly. It was expensive, and the idea of tracking down my own husband felt both desperate and humiliating. But every time I looked at Liam and Ethan, every time I saw the pain in their eyes, I knew I had no choice. For months, I waited for updates. The investigator combed through financial records, surveillance footage, and phone logs. But Daniel had covered his tracks well. No credit card activity. No flight records. No job applications. Nothing. Then finally, a breakthrough. A small town, nearly 3 states away. A rental property registered under his name. I barely thought as I packed a bag, arranged for my mother to watch the kids, and drove through the night. The entire drive, my mind raced with a million possibilities. Would he slam the door in my face? Would he still be angry? Or worse, would he be a shell of the man I once knew? By the time I reached the town, dawn was breaking. The address led me to a small cabin tucked away in the woods. It was secluded, quiet, the kind of place someone went when they didn't want to be found. My hands shook as I knocked on the door. Seconds passed. Then, the door creaked open. And there he was, Daniel. His beard was fuller, his face thinner. He looked different, but those eyes, the same ones that once held so much love for me, were now distant, guarded. "What are you doing here?" His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't spoken in days. Tears welled in my eyes. "Daniel, I had to find you." He exhaled sharply, rubbing his face. "Why?" "Because I need you. The kids need you." His expression hardened. "They are my kids." The words hit like a punch to the gut. I stepped forward. "Maybe not by blood, but they are yours in every way that matters. You raised them, loved them. That means something, doesn't it?" He looked away, jaw clenched. "I can't go back, Emily." My throat tightened. "Why not?" His hands trembled as he ran them through his hair. "Because I don't know who I am anymore." His voice cracked, his eyes filling with something raw and broken. "My entire life was built around you, around them. And it was all a lie." My heart shattered. "It wasn't a lie, Daniel. The love was real. You were their father every single day, in every single way that mattered. That doesn't just disappear." For a moment, I thought I saw something break inside him. But then he stepped back. "I can't do this, Emily." Tears streamed down my face. "Please." But he didn't let me finish. He simply closed the door. And this time I knew I had lost him forever. I stood frozen on his doorstep, staring at the closed door, hoping, praying, that he would open it again. But deep down, I knew he wouldn't. Daniel was gone. Not in the physical sense. He was right there, just on the other side of that door. But in every other way, the man I knew, the man I loved, had disappeared the moment he found out the truth. I drove home in silence, my mind numb, my heart hollow. When I walked through the front door, Liam and Ethan ran up to me, their faces full of hope. "Did you find him?" Liam asked, his voice filled with something I hadn't heard in weeks. Faith, I wanted to tell them that everything was okay, that Daddy was coming home, but the truth was a bitter weight in my chest. "I found him," I whispered. Ethan's small hands gripped my sleeve. "Then where is he?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. He needs some time." Liam's face fell. He was old enough to sense the lie beneath my words. But he didn't push me for more. He just turned away, quietly walking to his room. That night, after the boys were asleep, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone. I wanted to text Daniel, to call him, to beg him, but I knew it would do no good. He had made his choice. And I had to live with it. Months passed, then a year. Daniel never came back. The boys stopped asking for him after a while, though I caught Liam staring at the front door sometimes, as if still waiting for his father to walk through it. Ethan stopped mentioning bedtime stories, but he clung to the old ones Daniel used to read, his little fingers tracing over the worn pages as if trying to hold on to a part of him. I never told them the full truth. Maybe one day I would. Maybe one day, when they were older and could understand, I would tell them why their father left. Or maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I would let them keep the version of him they remembered, the man who had tucked them in at night, cheered for them at soccer games, and wiped away their tears. The man who had loved them more than life itself. Because that was who Daniel had been. And even if he was gone, that was the man I would always remember.